Hi, in this video we will talk about calculating percentages in Excel. We'll start with the basic example and then we will talk about some practical usage of that. For example, calculating a percentage increase or decrease, and if you're given a initial amount and a final amount, what's the percentage change from that? And then we'll talk about applying the GST or a tax or the VAT to your prices. So if you have been given a price inclusive of GST, how do you calculate the ex-GST amount or the ex-GST price, and how do you calculate the GST which you have paid in that? So let's get started. So in this example, you have an amount of 100 and then you have been given a percentage of 5. So 5% is basically 0.05. So if you go and apply percentage, it becomes 5. But if you look at the comma style, it's 0.05. Never put a 5 there, because if you put 5 and then apply the percentage, it'll become 500% because you started with an amount 5. So always give the percentage with 0.05 for 5%, zero point 0.1 for 10%, etc. So if I need to apply the percentage, all I need to do is amount, which is A5, and then multiply it by B5. So that gives you the percentage amount. So let's talk about the second example where we are trying to calculate the percentage increase or decrease. So you have been given the initial amounts, which is 100, 200, 300, 400, and we need to apply the same percentage to all of them. So in this example, we have put it to 5%. And to calculate the percentage amount, we multiply the amount with the percentage. So A9 multiplied by B9, and then you get the percentage amount. How do you get the increased amount? You get the increased amount by using the amount multiplied, open brackets, 1 plus percentage. So in this case, it was 5. So that gives you the increased amount. A decreased amount, let's say you have a item price which is $100, and then you want to discount it by 5%, then you simply apply a minus there instead of a plus. Plus goes for increase and minus goes for decrease. If we look at the generic formula, the increased amount equals amount multiplied by 1 plus percentage. And if you just need to calculate the percentage amount only, it's amount multiplied by percentage. And that's what we did in this example. Second example is when you are given initial amount and then you're given a final amount. So let's say this was the money in the bank on the day one, and this is the money on the bank after a certain amount of days. And you just need to calculate what was the percentage change. So to do that, you need to apply the formula where you need to calculate the change. So the change is from the final amount minus initial amount, which is B18 minus A18. So that's the change. And then you're comparing this change with your initial amount. So that's what the formula is saying. This is the change, and then you're dividing it by the initial amount. And that's giving you a 6% change in this case. In the second case, where the amount was 200 and the final amount was 230, it became 15%. In the third example, it went to minus amount because the initial amount was 300 and then the final amount became 190, which is lower than 300. So you have a negative percentage applied. So the generic formula looks like this. So it is final amount minus initial amount divided by the initial amount. So that's what we did in this scenario. In the third example, we would calculate the ex-GST amounts and the GST amounts given the price of an item. Let's say we have an item which is $100, which includes the GST or the tax. And then we know that the GST percentage is 7%. In the second example, it's 8%. And the third example, it's 9%. Let's calculate the ex-GST amount. So for calculating the ex-GST amount, you start with your original price, the inclusive price, which is A27, open brackets, 1. So, so the formula is you start with the inclusive price, which is 827. Now you divide, open brackets, 1 plus the GST percentage. And that gives you the ex-GST amount. To calculate the GST amount, you're saying 827, which is your inclusive GST amount, multiplied by the tax rate or the GST percentage, divided it by 1 plus tax rate. So if you look at the formula, it'll become a little clearer. So formula for ex-GST is GST inclusive price divided it by 1 plus GST percentage. That's a practical example of that. And if you just need to calculate the GST amount which is included in that price, you get the GST inclusive price multiplied by the GST percentage and then divide by 1 plus GST percentage. And this is what we did in this example. Starting with the inclusive amount, we calculated the ex-GST amount and then the GST portion of that as well. Now, there are certain shortcuts depending upon which country you are from. So if you have a 10% GST in your country, then it's much easier. You can simply divide it by, you can start with the inclusive amount, which is 120, and then divided it by 11. And that's a shortcut. Instead of using that big formula, you can simply divide it by 11, and then you get the GST amount. And similarly, you can also do original amount minus the GST component, which is 836, which is the original amount 120, divided it by 11, which is nothing but this. So if you calculated this amount, you can obviously get this amount by minusing it from that. So similarly, if your country has a 15% GST, then it's also a little bit easier. So you multiply it by 3 and then divide it by 23 to get the GST amount. So that's just a shortcut. But if you are not going to use those shortcuts, just stick to this formula and remember these 3 or 4 formulas, which will help you to calculate different scenarios. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found this information useful. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.